Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this month's webinar, and we will be talking about SmartSimple's question set builder. My name is Claudine Ting, and I'm the marketing specialist for client success here at SmartSimple. Just some updates before we begin the webinar. It's Block Party Copenhagen. That would be on November 15th, and it would be hosted by the Novo Nordisk Foundation. I see a few familiar names attending this webinar who were also at Elevate last week. Thank you so much for attending that conference. It was so good to see everyone, and it was a great time to catch up with everyone. Okay. Next one, we have the upgrade webinar next month, November 19th and November 21st. So this is going to be the last upgrade for 2019. So make sure you join the upgrade Q&A webinar. We have a few exciting enhancements upcoming for the November upgrade, and we don't want you to miss out on that one. And also just a heads up, this is the last of the upgrade cycle where we're going to have it four times a year. Next year, we're going to be transitioning to a 3 times a year upgrade schedule. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host, Eric Lauer, co-founder and director of customer experience here at SmartSimple.
Hi, thanks, Claudine. It's Eric speaking here. Just happy to do the webinar for you today and on the question set builder.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So before we get started on the overview, for those who have not joined a webinar in the past with SmartSimple, we encourage questions at the end of the presentation. So feel free to put them on the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'd be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. All right, Eric, I'm passing the mic to you now.
Perfect. Thanks, Claudine. So guys, what to expect in this webinar? We're going to be reviewing one of the features in the platform called the question set builder. Some of you may have heard of it before or wondering what is it used for, and that's what we're going to explain to you today. But it's really about, as the words say on the slide, is making changes to your forms on the fly. So it gives you the power of an admin without being an admin, and allows you to generate ad hoc questions that your grantees or whoever is filling in a form can answer without having to do too much configuration. Okay. And again, so the problem that this was trying to solve really was we had clients who had a need to ask sort of random questions on the fly that maybe would only be around for one program or maybe for one review form or even a report, that they weren't key or crucial to ongoing questions that you would ask on your standard application form, let's say, but maybe you just wanted to ask it for one particular program without too much rigor. And what was happening was the sysadmins would have to go in and add a lot of permissioning and visibility to really for a question that may only be asked once and maybe not even be reported on or searched on, but it was just a question that was going to be asked and wasn't going to be used later. So we came up with the question set builder to allow you to create custom fields on the fly, or questions, I guess, in terms of a use case for an application form, without having to be an admin. So it's actually pretty easy to set up, and I'll be walking you through that during the demo portion. But really, the only thing you really have to do, is, and the admin person does have to do this initial setup, it's really just 2 custom fields. So you create a custom field called the question set builder, and that just sets up the framework to build your own questions. And then you add another custom field called the question set, and that's where you decide where the questions are to be displayed. And that's it. Once those are in place, then it's just up to the end user, and they can go ahead and start taking advantage. So again, really what this comes down to is just it's just ease of use, less admin time, flexibility for the program staff maybe, or the grant staff, or whoever needs to manage this, to really just you know, add fields on the fly without too much admin or overhead in terms of the configuration of the system. However, I do want to put a note here, and we put it into the slide, that because of this flexibility and the nature of the ad hoc nature of the question set builder, currently it's not really available for really any in-depth reporting in terms of, you know, within the report build or things of that nature. Just the intent was these are, intentionally one-off questions that aren't going to be applicable to maybe more than one program. They're only going to be used in this one use case. And while they may be good to look at while you're reviewing an application form, they're not sort of at the core of your application process, and you may not want to use them over and over again. So that was sort of the nature, and that was the purpose for it being built this way. If you're looking for easier ways to manage your custom fields and how they display on forms, that's coming soon, probably in 2020. I mean, we've already started with things like the configuration mode on the forms and things of that nature. So just want to be very clear that the question set builder is not a replacement for that, and what the use case was for this particular feature. And I think at this stage, I can go ahead and show you how it all works. And if I can, Claudine.
You go for it and share your screen.
Okay. Perfect. Is that good? I think everyone can
Yep, I see it.
see the screen. Excellent. So for today's presentation, I'm using one of our demo sites, taking on the role of using our SmartSimple University setup, which is kind of think scholarships for those of you in different verticals. But in this case, it was a nice setup, and I thought I'd show you the feature this way. So I'll start with how it manifests for the end user. So if I go into here, and maybe I'll go into a particular person, and I will go to, I'll pick this one here. So I'm going to pick the Science Award. And in this particular setup, we have an award. Think of this as the program manager. So I'm defining who's eligible, who can answer these types of questions. If I go to the Applications tab, this is where I build my my ad hoc questions. So in this case, where I'm looking at standard custom fields, these are just normal custom fields that you would add into SmartSimple. But down below, I have my question set builder area. So in this case, I'm already seeing one that's existing, and I'm going to walk you through on how to build these. But in this case, I have one that's existing. But if I want to add a new question, it's just a matter of choosing the plus sign. I can choose my field type, almost like you would when you're for the admins on the line who have been doing custom fields for a while. I can put in my question. Question goes here. And if there's any multiple choice, if I'm using a drop down or maybe check boxes, I can put options in here separated by semicolons, just as you would elsewhere in the system. And then I can define things like, is this going to be mandatory? What kind of format is the field? What kind of precision if I'm using a number? And then if I am using a currency, what currency format do I want to use? So once I've built this, I've actually done this, think of this as the program level. When I go to the applicant in this case, so this is the person applying for the scholarship, and I'm going to emulate their session here. And now I'm looking at the screen as the student. And if I go to my awards, and if I open up my applications in progress here, and I go into my fellowship, I actually get presented my questions here. So these were all the questions that we saw in the question set builder. Now, I didn't take you through one by one and show you all the text, but this is how it manifests. So we've left the title here just to make it easier for demonstrations to understand that these questions are actually coming from the question set builder. So while when I'm managing my program, it looks like I'm doing config, which I am, to the end user who's filling them out, they don't know the difference between a standard field like these, right, that would have been part of the normal custom field process, or the fields that we've added as through the question set builder. So this actually allows you to be pretty creative and ask a lot of additional questions without having to do a lot of that administrative work. And that's all through here. And then once they're answered, we'll be able to see that on their application form on the other side. So if this is how it looks on the screen, let me show you how that works on the configuration side of things. So I'm going to go back to my awards manager / program manager here, and I'm going to choose my particular program. And in this case, I'm going to go to the, or actually, maybe I'll make it easier for you guys. I'll go to, I was going to use the, I'm so used to using the configuration mode, which I can here, but I'm going to jump into the full configuration screen just to make it easier to see. So this is my question set builder field. I would have chosen it. And it's a special type of field. And you'll notice when you're choosing special field types in SmartSimple, once you save it, we prevent you from changing the field type again. Because they're so unique, we don't want you changing it from one field type to the other. It could cause problems. And you'll see that even on multi-file upload fields and things like that. So in this case, this is it. I mean, I create the field. I can permission it just like a normal field that I would in SmartSimple, and that's all I have to do. And that sets the framework for building the field. So to show you right from scratch, if I'm in my custom field list, I would just say new field, go into my options, choose from the special ones here, question set builder, give it a name, choose any of the other parameters I want permissions, and that's it. So once I have the framework, what that does, and I'll delete that now so I don't mess up the demo system. It'll create that section there where I'm allowed to build the new question sets and questions that I want. Where I want those answers to appear, I then just need to go into the again into the configuration area of the system and say where I want my field to appear. So in this case, we were just doing it on, to use SmartSimple Speak, just using the level 2. So we were going from the level 1 to the level 2 in this case. And we can see here that I have a special field called question set. And again, it's just a matter of adding a new field, picking question set, and then I'm finished. However, in this case, I want to choose which field source that I want to pick from. So in this case, I'm doing within the same module or UTA, I can pick the field. However, the nice thing about the question set builder is it allows you to use what we call in SmartSimple the consumer provider. So I can talk between modules. So if I go into a different UTA here in the submission manager, and I go into the configuration area of this UTA, I can go to the custom fields here and create a new field. And this time I'm going to choose the question set. So it's under the special again. And I'm going to choose not the builder, but the question set. This is where I want my answers to be. And when I choose, when I save that here, you'll notice when I scroll down and I choose source field, it's actually allowing me to go to the other UTA and say, oh, I want the questions from the program manager to appear here in my submission manager or application manager. So the nice thing is you can go from kind of top down, from one level above to one below, or I can go across modules and across UTAs within the system itself. So with an easy trick like that, we are able to use the question set builder. Just keep in mind, you know, for the purposes of what it was designed for was really just for ad hoc questions to manifest for the end user to be able to go in, create fields on the fly, have people, you know, add them ad hoc without going through the administrative areas. Here's one from scratch that I set up before the webinar. You know, I can add as many questions I want in this case. You know, everything from file uploads to number fields, date fields, and have people fill those in. So that's really the ease of use on this. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, Eric, we have one question here. Can the question responses be included in PDF?
They can. So the question, I believe the question set can in the answers, not the builder, but the answers as custom fields.
Okay. And just to clarify, what level of permission would you need to have in order to add questions on the fly with the question set builder?
And that's actually the best part. So none, or as little as you need. So the nice thing is you can allow non-admins to create their own questions. And that's the benefit of this. So I can come in as a non-global or not even a system administrator. Maybe I'm just managing my own program. And I can come in here as long as you permission the field itself for me to access it. So the administrator who first sets it up, they'll just need to go into the question set builder field and just make sure that you have the permission here to say who can modify the question set builder field. And if the person in this role, you can make reviewers maybe ask their own questions. You can do something like that. So as long as it's permissioned properly here, then anyone can add new questions on the fly.
Great. Another question over here. Can these questions and responses also be pulled into exported, let's say in Excel, for example?
No, and that's sort of the part that's limited right now. So it's not available in the report builder to be exported out of the system. So they're really meant for, you know, I want to ask them, and they might help me for this particular time, but I'm not going to be doing any sort of number crunching with these questions in this field.
But is it just for Excel, or can it be included in list views?
No, just for the Excel. So if I go into the list here, you'll notice that I can't. I'll show you. So in my fields, okay. So I can include the fields here, right? So I can even I can search for them. I can put them in the list views as you mentioned in your question, and that's not a problem. It's just in the actual report builder in here under the tools section. It won't. It's not meant to work in that area. So even in here, you'll notice the it's not, even though you can maybe search by the fields, we're not allowing you to export the data as a column in the list view.
And then another question that we have here, Eric. So I'm trying to understand the use case. Are these questions added to all applications as of the point of being added, or just some selected applications? Would they then need to be deleted from the application to ensure that they didn't persist past their specific purpose?
Sort of. So think of it. Yeah. So they're really one-off questions. So they're tied not to the entire level. So, like for example, when I open up the Faculty of Science here award, so think of this as Program 1. When I come into Program 1 and I add these questions, they are only applicable to the level 2s for this Stanley PhD Fellowship. So if I choose application here and I create a new one, I'm only going to see the questions here. They don't exist anywhere else. If I go back and I open up the other record, and I go into the Faculty of Medicine, for example, and I go to the application tab, you'll see here I don't have the same questions. When I open up the level 2 underneath this particular award, I'm only going to see the questions that I've typed in for that. So it's not so much system-wide fields. They're really fields that are linked just to those records. So this was quite common, and the reason why I'm picking the scholarship system here, we see it in a research sometimes where people have very specific questions for one time only that they want as a reference and say, okay, what did I answer to this question? But they're not necessarily key criteria that you would do like this, you know, award nature, type, give me descriptions, what's the, you know, max award number, how many are the max recipients. So they're not fields like that. There's information I want to know, but it's not important enough that I need to add this across every single program, or I need to add this year over year. It's just for this one particular use case. And we understand this feature is not for everybody. That's why it was very clear upfront saying, look, this is really just for one-time questions you're never going to ask again, and really they're related just to be on a record-by-record basis. So not the entire, like not all fellowship awards or scholarship awards. It's only for this fellowship in computer science or this health career scholarship award. So hopefully I was clear on explaining that. And if you have more questions, I'm happy to hop on a call just to see if maybe you can make use of the question set builder for your particular use cases.
Okay, another question that we have here, Eric. Can you use this in level 3 activities?
Yeah, so one, you can go level 1 to level 2 at the moment, or across from the level 1s or level 2s in another UTA, but not from a level 2 to level 3 at this time. But there is an enhancement there to, I don't know the current status of it, but there is an enhancement to go from level 2s to level 3s. Yeah, and again, this kind of falls into, sorry, Colleen, but it kind of falls into our standard approach when we conceive of the idea based on some specific requests that we had from clients. We're always leery to go down to one specific use case only that doesn't work for everyone else. So, this was a feature that started off very basic. I mean, we were only allowing single line text fields and multi-line text fields. So now we have a whole bunch of different field types to use. We can do the consumer provider now between different UTAs, and now there's even further improvements to go from level 2 to level 3. So any ideas you have for some functionality of this nature, then we'd be happy to add it to our enhancement queue.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think that's it for now. So again, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to email our host today, Eric Lauer at elauer@smartsimple.com. Also email support@smartsimple.com, and they'd be happy to help you out as soon as they can. For those who are wondering if there's going to be a recording of this webinar, this should be available on our YouTube channel by next week. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye for now.
Thank you.